Real people, real opinions, real talk radio. The multi-award winning Niall Boylan Show.
Ireland's classic hits.
Yet again, we are hearing calls for more resources to combat antisocial behaviour in our capital. Yet again, we're hearing news of a violent attack. And last night, a 57-year-old American tourist was attacked, kicked and beaten by a group of youths on Store Street at around 10:40 last night. He had just left the guest house he was staying in on Talbot Street when the attack took place, and the Gardaí and the emergency service were called to the scene, and the man was taken to Beaumont Hospital, where he remains there in intensive care. It's believed he's had life-changing injuries, and also, as I said, he's in intensive care, so he's in a critical condition. It is quite terrifying, really, isn't it? Imagine you head off on your holidays to the land of 1,000 welcomes, Céad Míle Fáilte and all that kind of thing, and you're beaten up to an inch of your life in its city centre, not even before midnight. Now, we may comment on America's gun crime and think we're above that, but clearly we have a problem here in Ireland. Let's not fool ourselves. There is violence in our society. And I dread to think of his family at home getting on a plane as we speak probably, or getting a phone call to tell them the news. It's everyone's worst nightmare. But one local councillor is saying we need less talk and more resources for Dublin. Niall Ring says if something isn't done, Talbot Street and the surrounding streets will simply be no-go areas. And he joins me on the line. Niall, good evening to you. How are you?
Not too bad, Niall. And I hate actually having to say that. It really, because I'm a sixth generation Dubliner, and to think that I'm talking about Talbot Street and O'Connell Street as somehow become no-go areas, it just.
But they're not unique, you know. I mean, Niall, it just happened to be Talbot Street this time. They're not unique. We've had problems in Pearse Street. We've had problems in Ballyfermot, Cherry Orchard, other parts of the country as well. And it all comes down to one thing. And look, there was a lot of blaming going on 6-1 News tonight, and I was watching it. And the main blame seems to be set at the feet of An Garda Síochána, and the lack of resources, the lack of recruitment, the lack of Gardaí. 800 less Gardaí now than there was in 2021. 90 alone missing out of Pearse Street or Store Street Police Station. So how do you encourage more guards in, and how do we get them out on the street to deter crime?
Well, how you encourage more in is you get the Minister for Justice to sit down with the Garda Commissioner, Drew Harris, and say, right, what facilities do the Garda need? What will attract somebody to a job where you walk out on the street and you're likely to be abused, you're likely to be hit, you're likely to be in my day you were afraid of the Gardaí, and you were playing ball on the street. But these people nowadays, they're totally immune to it. So between extra resources, of course we need that, but you have to make it an attractive profession, and I don't know how they're going to do that.
Yeah, because the pool to pick out of is smaller. You know, in our day, there was less skilled workers, you know, coming out of school and coming out of college, and it was kind of the army, the guards, you know, the Dublin Corporation, whatever it is, or carpenter, bricklayer, mechanic. They were the kind of standard jobs. Now all the kids, and I'm not having a go with them, but they don't want to get their hands dirty. They want to, you know, sit at a desk and, you know, do graphic design and do computer technology and software development. It's more attractive. They get more money for doing it. I know somebody recently just got a promotion in his job. He's 25 years of age and he's earning 150,000 a year. You're not going to get that in the Guards. And as you say, you're putting your life in your hands.
Yeah, and now everything you do is being filmed by somebody with their camera. So in the old days when Lugs Brannigan and his type could give a fella a clip around the ear, that's well gone now.
I'm going to put a bell here, and every time Lugs Brannigan's name is mentioned on the show, I'm going to ring it, because it is true, Niall. You know, that they dealt with that situation. Now, of course, we obviously can't go back to the days of Lugs Brannigan where he boxed the head off you in the middle of the street. But in saying that, on a very serious note, I wouldn't go into Dublin City at night. I was talking to my wife tonight. She said she wouldn't go in. My producer, Jane, mentioned she would be fearful about going into Dublin City. That's a very sad thing. And the word kip is now being used constantly when referring to O'Connell Street. So, I mean, we're in a very bad position.
We're in a bad position, and I know a lot of the local Gardaí in the area, and myself and the other public reps were only in with Pat McManaman, the Chief Superintendent, about 2 to 3 weeks ago. And all of this was brought up. And I felt sorry for him, because he knows himself and his guys and girls are working. Like, they're working to the bone. They're stretched to the limits, and they're actually working beyond those limits. And it's down, as you said the figure, I think the numbers don't lie. In a place like Store Street, that's 90 Gardaí down. I mean, that just means you can't have patrols, you can't have people on the street. And we're constantly being told, like, for example, the minister came out today and it was the usual, like, you know, it's the usual talk, oh, this is appalling and we'll do something.
But is she
about
fit
it.
for the job? Now, be honest, is she fit? I mean, she spent the last 3 weeks defending a piece of legislation that the general public don't seem
the
to
hate
want.
crime. I mean,
I
for
mean,
God's sake, yeah.
you know, I mean, like, as far as I'm concerned, pandering to NGOs. So, with a piece of legislation that, okay, the parties voted for, but the general public don't seem to want, or it doesn't even seem to be necessary. And I was reading an article there today. Oh gosh, his name is going out of my head. Anyway, David Quinn from the Iona Institute in relation to the 300 hate crimes that the Gardaí had been reported to, but seemingly they were all illegal anyway under the original piece of legislation. So it seems like an unnecessary piece of legislation that, if anything at all, people are upset about. So, but that's all I see her talking about. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just seeing the wrong thing. I mean, surely this is her job. We had the same problem with Alan Shatter when he closed down lots of Garda stations and left us in a very vulnerable situation. And that was because of money, by the way, more so than anything else. The money is not the issue now. So how do we... I mean, what about going back to roots, the very start? I remember talking to Daithí Doolan a while ago from Sinn Féin, and he was saying we have to nip it in the bud at the age of 14 because the 19-year-olds who beat people up, or the 18-year-olds, were 14 once, and they were the ones committing petty crimes, the antisocial behaviour. You know, and we talked the other night as well to Willie O'D, and he was saying, let's find their parents. You know, hit them in the pockets.
Yeah, you could do that, but I mean, you know, that's probably like a lot of the legislation in this country. It's unenforceable. I'm sure we're bringing in the hate crime legislation again, unenforceable. I mean, we have a situation now where, you know, they're talking about the scooters and you know, we have to bring in legislation. Like, we've 188,000 drivers going around in motor cars without insurance. Like, what chance? And if we can't stop that, what chance we got doing scooters? But to get back to the point on the crime in the North Inner City in particular, we had the drugs in the 80s and 90s. Then we had the feud in the last few years. The drugs have always been the undercurrent there. Now what's happening? And Joe Costello, and I have to give a shout out to Joe. Joe's just retired from the city council, a council colleague, and someone who's put 35 years into the North Inner City, and he's recently retired. Joe actually asked a very pertinent question to the city manager recently: how many of the refugee centres, homeless accommodation, all of the issue, the problem areas, how many of them are in the North Inner City? And it's over 60%. So you've got a thriving capital city, and the main street in the city, all surrounded by places where you're going to have problems, and then you don't resource it. You know, you have, and I can't say, but there's a talk around the area that we know where the people who perpetrate this crime come from, and there's a particular corner at the corner of Gardner Street and Talbot Street that everyone knows and everyone passes, and you see groups around there all the time, and they're in accommodation across the road, and they just drink openly, do what they want. They're down in Moore Street as well. They're like the historic Moore Street.
But if you know about it and locals know about it, well, then I assume the guards know about it.
And the guards know about it.
So what's been done?
If there aren't enough guards to stop, you know, now the resources have to go in, and rightly so, going around all the businesses, getting the CCTV, getting witnesses. So the resources going into that attack last night are massive. If those resources were free to go around the street and patrol the streets at night, we mightn't have had that incident and all the other incidents that have happened.
But I said to Willie the other night, Willie O'D, when I was talking to him, that I lived in Edenmore. I grew up in Edenmore, which is a rough joint at the time back in the 1960s, right? And, you know, Edenmore was fairly rough. I mean, parents were worried sick about me all the time. Yeah. And I remember when you'd be out hanging around the street, if it was after 9 o'clock at night, there was like 4 roads, like the Gardens, the Drive, the Crescent, the Green. And there was guards. There was always 2 guards, 2 lads, 2 big lads. And they'd be walking around on the beat. And every now and again, Smiley, we used to call him Smiley because he always had this grin on his face. He'd go around on his motorbike and he'd do a little bit of a scope on the streets then about 9 or 10 o'clock at night as well. And if they seen you out, they'd be over to you like, what are you doing? What are you up to? And, you know, and they'd put the fear of God in you. But we just, and not that we were committing crimes, but it would deter you from even thinking about it because you knew they were only a road away. You know what I mean?
Of course, and the whole thing is about deterrent. And you know now that they're not a road away, they're not a street away,
They're at least 20 minutes away. Yeah,
yeah.
if you're lucky.
And you know when they get the call outs for whatever, you know, you hear the reports that it's taking X amount of time. But I have to say, I 100% support the Gardaí. I see what they're doing, and with the resources they have, and honestly, they're doing an amazing.
No, I mean it's not their fault. No, I'm not saying it's their fault.
Absolutely, you know what I mean? No. But the minister really has a lot to answer for. Like the eye is off the ball.
Yeah.
She's taken the eye off the ball without any shadow of a doubt. We had the Mulvey report, we had the NEIC. They threw in the 6-8 million a year, which has had an impact in terms of what you were saying. Get them earlier. Like for example, down the NCI, Josephine Bleach and her amazing program with babies. Is, you know, that will pay dividends in 20 years' time. So you have to, unfortunately, the issue is now, the problem is now. So how do we solve it? The only way I can see it is Gardaí on the beat, and whether that means get them out of the stations. Have you ever been in the Central Criminal Court on a Monday morning, or the District Court up there in Parkgate?
Thankfully, no.
It's like a zoo, Niall. I have for various reasons in my time, but it's absolutely like a zoo. And there would be maybe 60, 70, 80, maybe 100 Gardaí there, because they have to be there because this fella did something on Friday night and he has to be there to say what happened. And then your man's sent back out and it's put back for another date. But you should do a live program from it. I can only say, like, it's close. It's close to Dublin Zoo, but it's actually more chaotic than Dublin Zoo. It's an absolute. And I feel sorry for the Gardaí.
Didn't we go through this going back a few years ago, where they decided to bring in civil servants to do the admin work for the Garda Síochána? You know, so I don't know how you do all that, because obviously you have some knowledge of the law, etc., etc. But to do the admin work, but the Garda themselves resisted that at the time. Now I don't know why. I felt maybe that was putting them out of a job or something. I don't know what the story was there, but there was a whole idea that, you know, it was to get these people behind the desk, so the guards didn't have to sit behind the desk and they could be out doing what they're meant to be doing, which was fighting crime. You know, and the other problem as well is cars. I mean, when I was living in Swords, they had 2 cars. I remember ringing one day to look for someone to come up for something was going on in the local green. And he said, oh, no, the car is out at the moment. It's over the other side of Malahide. And I said, and where's the other one? He said, it's broke down. I said, you're kidding me. I said, you have 1 car for a population of, I think, like Swords is a population of 200,000 people. And he said, you've 1 car, like. I said, you're joking me. And he went, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think...
Go to America. Every cop has a car. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think maybe that's what the minister should be looking at as well. Now, I think cops in cars it's great for call-outs, but again, the likes of O'Connell Street, Talbot Street, any street, even my own, like where my mum's down in Ballybock, and my office on Ballybock Road. I can't remember the last time I saw a guard walking up and down Ballybock Road, unless they were raiding one of the well-known drug dens in one of the tenements there.
Yeah.
Well, it would be in the pubs. But there's a certain number of Ballybock Road everyone knows where they're dealing out the windows, and you can actually see them. And in fairness, the guards go in every so often, seal it up. But
how many times have we talked about, and I think I've talked to you, Niall, before, about, you know, the dealing on the boardwalk, open dealing on the boardwalk. And we talk about it, everybody knows about it, we talk about it in the media all the time, and it's still happening. It's never stopped.
Yeah.
Like, why that shouldn't be allowed? Any other city in the world, it wouldn't be allowed. It just wouldn't happen, because people would be afraid to do it because there'd be a presence in the area. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I like comparing us to every other city in the world. You know, that you go in the dangerous place there, because some are worse, some are better, and we're a great nation for saying, oh, look, aren't they great in here and they're great there, and look how bad we are. We can't be self-flagellating all the time. We have to.
I mean, O'Connell Street is meant to be the focal point of Dublin City. You know, it's meant to be the most beautiful street in Dublin City. And, well, you can blame the planners for the nonsense and takeaways and, you know, all that nonsense that's on it. But in saying that, it's an embarrassment. And here we have a situation now where I don't know who had to make the phone call to this man's family in Washington, I believe. He's from Washington. To tell him that, you know, your brother, your son, or whatever it is in critical condition in Dublin because he was beaten up on his night out. You know what I mean? In Dublin.
And he seemed to be, the reports are that he was here a good few times, so he probably felt quite comfortable that in the city, and maybe, you know, like obviously he was in the wrong place at the wrong time with these scumbags just coming up, and, you know, but I feel for him. And as someone who was recently beaten up.
I remember that, yeah.
And, you know, that was traumatic and frightening. But at least, you know, when we got out of it, but I can't even imagine what it was like, the terror that man must have experienced, particularly when you're on the ground and someone starts kicking your head. I mean, what sort of society? That's a societal problem. If young people see that, and I have to say, we have to start looking at internet, and like, you know, you were talking about interviewing a porn star there earlier, but porn and the internet had just desensitized people to, like, they see, I remember my lads when they were growing up, this Call of Duty was the big
of course,
computer game.
Or Grand Theft Auto.
Unadulterated violence. So if you're feeding a young brain with that, you know, so these guys don't seem to think kicking somebody in the head is going to, you know,
I know, because I watch those videos, Niall, too. I watch some of these videos online on TikTok and all this kind of thing. And I see these people beating people up and kicking them in the head or dancing on their head. And I'm going, I couldn't do that to another human being. You know,
they seem to be able to.
It's like you're right, desensitized to violence.
Yeah.
You know, I watched a video from Dublin there recently where a guy went out, I don't know, there was some family dispute or whatever, I know, some girl. The girl looked about 20. This young fella, I'd say, was about 20. Maybe they were ex-boyfriends and girlfriends, or she had an affair, he had an affair. I don't know what the story was behind it. But he grabbed hold of her, smacked her head off the car, right, and kept banging her head. Then he pushed her between the door and the car and closed the door on her. She's out cold on the ground, and he gives her a kick.
Oh, my God.
And then people are around, start to come around, like, but then there's people walking past. I can see a woman going past with a buggy, and just as if nothing's going on. And it's like people just ignore this because they're afraid to get involved.
But then worse now, there's someone videoing this.
But that's
Instead
even makes it worse.
The guards, they actually have their video up.
I know.
Like, it just, I can't understand the mindset. I really can't. I mean, we're obviously a different generation, and I have 4 young fellas now in their 20s, and, you know, you hope you brought them up right, and that. But isn't that what it come down to too? Okay, so we've established we need more guards. I think the answer there, part of the answer is paying them better money. Is part of the answer for a basic wage. I'm not talking about the allowances and everything else they get, but for a basic wage, they should be getting more money. There's no doubt about it, because I wouldn't do their job for all the money in the world. Yeah. So it's a thankless job, right? So they need to be offered more money. The resources need to be better. So they need to have better equipment, more cars. They need to have better resources in the Garda station. They need to have civil service helping them as well to do all the paperwork, essentially, because that takes them away from doing what they should be doing. And then the other thing is tackling crime at a young age. And that comes down to 2 things. It comes down to, well, either finding the parents, if we believe that will work. You don't believe it will. But it needs to educate. We need to educate parents, because I have said on the air on numerous occasions, I knew where my children were when they were 14 years of age. Yeah. And any parent who says, but I don't know where he'd be, I don't accept that. You know what I mean? You're absolutely right. I mean, I remember if I was out beyond a certain time, you go home, the mother would be waiting up, and geez, you were in real trouble, and you were.
But I knew
terrified.
where they were. I knew exactly. I knew all 3 of my kids, and they're all in their 20s now. But when they were 12, 13 years of age, well, firstly, they wouldn't be out at 10 o'clock at night anyway. But if they were out at 8 o'clock, I knew exactly where they were. If they weren't in the house, I knew where they were. And this idea is, you never know. You know, you can't be watching them 24 hours a day. You should be. They're yours.
And they all have mobile. Every kid has a mobile phone. So don't say the parents can't say I didn't know where they were and couldn't contact them. Now I know, you know, when you ring your kids at certain times, they don't answer the bloody phone. But I mean, that's another issue. Maybe we have to put the trackers in them, Niall, on the sly or something like that.
Yeah, well, you can do. I know parents who do that too. By the way, it's great tracking apps. But Niall, it is sad, and it's sad to see your city as well, because you live in the inner city, of course. It's sad to see the city go the way it is, and it's sad to hear people constantly say, "I wouldn't go into the city at night."
That's what upsets me most, because you have the likes of Dublin Town and Richard Guiney, and these guys are going out there cleaning up. The city council are trying to clean it up. Everyone's doing their best to try and make it attractive. And an incident like this, which will make headlines and probably world headlines, because, like, certainly in America, as you said, Cade Mila falls you, like, Cade Mila kicks in the head. I mean, bloody hell, It's but I mean, hopefully, I mean, and I didn't realise that. I know when I heard he was gone to Beaumont, that's where the sort of head injury place is. So God knows what. And did you say life changing? So
That's according to the news. They're saying he has life changing injuries, and he's in intensive care.
That's terrifying to hear something like that. You know, you just hope he comes around, and I know the Gardaí will get the perpetrators, but. You know, we need to get back
more.
To
there's another thing. More CCTV.
It's not even going to happen.
More cameras, because these people who object to the cameras, by the way, if you've not done nothing wrong, you should not be afraid. You know what I mean?
100% agree. Absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, you see it all over London. You see it all over New York. You see these cameras up on poles. You know, that kind of revolve around, and they can watch everything on every street. You know, I'm not saying we should have them that they're, you know, able to recognise people. I want to keep people's privacy too. But in saying that, we should be able to see people, and we should be able to see crimes if they happen.
The technology is there. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, as you say, it can blur out faces if it needs to, and then it can show them if the person. But as you say, if you've done nothing wrong,
you have nothing to fear.
Yeah, absolutely. It might be just. I mean, in our day, the worst thing you do is, well, not me, of course, but you know, you might go up. You might be caught short and have to go for a pee somewhere up a lane or something. Yeah. But
in my day, the worst I ever did was knick-knack on someone's door. You know?
Oh, yeah. Jeez, got be with the days.
Absolutely. Niall, it's been good to talk to you. Keep up the good work, all right.
And we hope that man is out. I mean, the main thing out of all this, Niall, is that we hope that gentleman comes through, and you know, and just and our thoughts are with his family and him, of course. You know.
Yeah. All right,
fair play for you for covering it so well. Thanks, Niall.
All right, thank you very much indeed. There you go. Niall Ring, local electoral area, North Inner City. Now, what do we do about it? Let's do something on this, because I think we weren't meant to talk about it, but I think we should talk about it. Not about the man, and I, like Niall, I wish him well. I hope he makes a full recovery. I can't imagine, by the way, the person has to make that phone call. I'm assuming it's a member of An Garda Síochána, has to find out who this man is. He lives in Washington. Ring his mother or his sister or his wife, possibly. I don't know his circumstance, but I believe he's, according to the paper, he was 57, but I've heard other information now that he's in his 40s, so I don't know his exact age. But he is from Washington, and he was over here on a holiday. And I can only imagine somebody has to ring up the parents or whoever it is and say, listen, I'm ringing from Ireland. I've a bit of bad news for you. Imagine getting that phone call. They're now boarding a plane probably as we speak to come and visit him, while he's in intensive care with life-changing injuries because he got his head kicked in by a group of scumbags in Dublin city centre while he was on his holidays. Not good for Ireland, is it? And by the way, every attack is equally as bad. I'm not saying this because he's an American tourist, it's any worse, but it's not good for Ireland for that sort of thing to happen. But the inner city has become dangerous. And it's not just Dublin. It's Cork, it's Limerick, it's Galway. It's everywhere. The inner city has just become dangerous. So what do we do about it? It's all well and good blaming the Minister for Justice. And by the way, the blame squarely lies at her feet because she's the Minister for Justice. It's her responsibility to do something about it and meet with the Garda Commissioner and come up with an answer or some way of deterring this type of crime, antisocial behaviour on a regular basis happening all over the city. The lack of Garda Síochána is the main problem. How do you tackle that when people don't want to join the Guards? I would love to hear from you, by the way, if you're an off-duty member of An Garda Síochána. You can change your name if you want to come on the air. I know you're not meant to go on radio, but if you change your name, it's fine. You're welcome to come on the air and chat to us. And about the job. And I know there's bad guards out there. And before you all start ringing in, the guards. I know there's bad guards, but there's good guards. A lot of good guards. And would you do their job? I wouldn't do their job. There's not a chance in the world. Fair play to you, lads. I'm quite happy sitting in the studio here. Now, you might want to do my job either, but I certainly wouldn't want to do yours. I'm not walking out the door. I'm selfish like that. I'm sorry. I'm not walking out the door and putting my life at risk for somebody else. That's just me. Unless it was somebody I love, but not for complete strangers. I'm not putting my life at risk for whatever it is you get a year. Average salary, what is it, between 40 and 60 grand, depending on your allowances? There's not a chance I'm doing it. So how do we get more guards on the street? And the other question is, going back, nipping in crime in the bud at a young age, because all of those 19 or 25-year-olds who are scumbags, they were scumbags when they were 14 or 15. So who do you blame then? You can't blame the guards for that. You blame the parents for that. So do we start fining the parents? Niall didn't agree with that, but I don't think it's a bad idea. Willie O'D thought it was a good idea too when I talked to him the other night. Let me go to Eddie. Eddie, how you doing? You're on Ireland's Classics Radio.
Even Niall, you well?
I'm good, Eddie. I mean, so Eddie, what do you do? How do you solve this problem?
Do you know what, Niall? You don't. I'm sorry, but I've nothing but respect for the guards, and I hope that chap makes some kind of a recovery, and I hope whoever that danced on his head is done for attempted murder, because that's what it is.
No, it is, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's an absolutely thankless job. I wouldn't do it for all the tea in China. And they've actually shot themselves in the foot with a bit of a publicity disaster, because they're actually prosecuting one of their own chaps now for chasing that car down the motorway the wrong way.
Oh, I remember that story, yeah.
You know, and I mean, they're going to out him and give his name out, and people are going to look at that and go, and you want me to join that? It's an absolute PR nightmare. I mean, the job they do, do you remember those two female vanguarders that went into that car in Cherry Orchard and just got rammed over?
Oh, I do, yes,
and you have whiplash and all.
Yeah.
The amount of Garda that are out on the patent make at the moment is unbelievable. You know, it's the most thankless job, unarmed, sending two females into a bloody war zone with rob cars flying around. It's just under-resourced. It is thankless. I mean, they should even have tasers in this day and age. Did you see the video go around the other day of the chap on the bus? And he was having an argument with a member of the public. He looked inebriated, and he said, "I'll smash you," to the guard. And the guard got off the bus. Two of them started fighting. A fella had to jump off the bus and help the guard. He was on his own. And he was only fighting one person, and he was still struggling. There's absolutely no
I know.
backup.
I've seen a video there a while ago where there was two guards, and I'm not having a pop, but there were two smallish kind of guards, right? One was a female and one was a male, and I think it was in Ballyfermot as well. But they were boxing the head off one of the guards. There was two of them on top of him. And the
That's right, it was outside Chasers.
Yeah, and the other guard, she was afraid to get involved because she feared for her own safety too. So she was trying to call for backup while her colleague was getting the head knocked off him.
I think years ago when I was a kid, you had to speak Irish to get in the guards, and you had to be over 6 foot. That's all done away with now.
But here's the thing, and I agree with you, by the way. When they got rid of the height and everything else, I thought that was a mistake. But here's the thing: if you brought back in that restriction now, you'd have less cards. Because
that's what I'm saying.
Because the kids nowadays
will go into the force.
Well, why would you? I mean, I'm talking to 25 and 26 year olds who are involved in IT. They're earning $100,000 a year. Why would they want to go in a job where it's dangerous and they can sit beside a computer and earn a lot more money? And that's what they all want to do now.
I 100% agree with you. And like I say, the amount of them that are out on the sick because of stuff like this.
They have the highest. They have the highest sick rate in the country.
Yeah,
2 weeks per 2 weeks per guard per year.
Regarding fining them, that's all good in an ideal world. But what happens if they don't pay? They just say we're not paying it. Prisons are full. You know what I mean? What we're going to do is put them in, and they're out the following week later. It's, you know what I mean? They just won't pay it. Now, what I do disagree with you, I agree with you on most things. What I do disagree with you, when you said there, you knew where your child was when he was 14.
Yeah.
You can't know where they are all the time.
I did. Eddie, please don't say that to me. I did know where they were.
I'm going to tell you a story right now, and you won't believe this, right? So my best mate growing up, his dad was a soldier, disciplinarian, raised 5 lads. 4 turned out brilliant. 1 was just a nut job, right? Always in rob cars, right? I remember as a kid, about 14, staying in his house, right? He was in court at 9 a.m. for being in a stolen car, and he woke me up at 4 a.m. in the morning and said, "I'm climbing out the window. We have a car parked off over the field. I'll be back in a few hours." And he climbed back into the window that morning and went back to bed and went to court a few hours later for a stolen car that he was caught in, and his dad didn't even know he left the house.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that didn't happen. You can't. No, that was in that household, and that's fine, Eddie. I'm not doubting your story for a minute, but it didn't happen in my household.
Well, it didn't happen in your house. Now, one of my nephews, he's about 14. Do you know what his mate does? He takes photos when he's in his mate's gaff with his mum in the background. So when his dad texts him and says, "Where are you?" He goes, "Oh, I'm around Joe's house," and he sends a photo with him sitting there with the man in the background, which was took weeks prior. Kids are clever. You can't always know where they are. And I was a little scrope myself. I'll admit it. I wasn't robbing cars and stuff, but we used to go to the Mona factory that was across from us, and we used to nick the yogurt and stuff. But even stuff like that, my parents...
At least you were
don't.
stealing something healthy.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? But what we're saying is my parents don't know about that till today. They don't know.
Well, stay there for a second, and I'm going to go to Alan in a minute if I can, but I want to go to the former Lord Mayor, Christy Burke, as well. Christy, hi, how are you?
Good evening, Niall. How are you doing?
Good. Christy, you know, I think everybody, well, nobody is surprised, but everybody's obviously in shock at this poor man and what has happened to him. I mean, it is a shocking story, but not a surprising one, because we've seen how Dublin City in particular has gone over the last few years.
Yeah, you're right there. No, it's not. It's a terrible thing to happen. It's an appalling thing to happen. But could I tell you this, that for the last 12 months, I've been raising the issue that Talbot Street has become known as a street of fear, morning, noon and night. And local residents, one of them on to me yesterday, a 70-year-old man, born and reared in Corporation Street, and said to me, Christy, I wouldn't walk up Talbot Street day or night for fear of being attacked. Now, on Tuesday morning, Neil gone, I met up with Eddie Mullins, the governor of Mountjoy. He's now the new Caherly, the chairman of the Safety Partnership in the inner city. And I asked him on Tuesday morning, I said, can we meet up during the week, Eddie? I want you to walk up Talbot Street with me early morning, meaning 11 or 12 o'clock, because I said it's gone to wreck and ruin and people are afraid of their living lives to walk up it. And we arranged to meet Monday or Tuesday to walk up it. Lo and behold, this poor unfortunate American tourist ends up in Beaumont in intensive care. Now, I heard the Taoiseach tonight, Neil, boasting about the new Garda station in O'Connell Street and the newly opened Fitzgibbon Street. Well, I've news for the Taoiseach. They're not working, because if they were, we wouldn't be having this discussion. I haven't seen a guard in the Ballybock area or North Strand area in I don't know how long, walking along the street. I don't know how long. And we met with senior Garda management 3 weeks ago. Niall Ring, myself and other politicians in the area. And senior management told us they haven't got the resources to manage the area.
That's not an acceptable, but that's not an acceptable answer. Find the resources, get the resources. But we know whose fault that is. Well, it's only one person's fault. It's the Minister for Justice. We have to blame. That's her job. So the blame squarely lies with her. So what's she going to do about it?
Well,
apart from a soundbite on 6-1 News, that's no use. You know.
Oh, good. And I believe one of our government colleagues tackled her yesterday and said, "Listen, would you get real and get out, get Gardaí on the streets to fight the antisocial and the assaults?" This was only yesterday.
And by the way, this is not just Dublin. Yeah, Willie O'Day. I talked to Willie the night before last, and Willie was talking about the same situation in Limerick as well.
Yeah, so the same happened last night through the night in Galway. The man is in Beaumont Hospital. The man attacked in the early hours of this morning in Galway.
No, I'm not suggesting that if you had 10,000 extra guards, it would stop every single crime, because it wouldn't. But certainly having guards or a presence on the street, deters people from committing crimes. More cameras on the street deters people from committing crimes. Easier access by having more cars or better resources deters crime. All those are tools to deter crime. But we don't have any of those tools. So here's the problem, Christy. It's all well and good, myself and yourself and Eddie and Alan and Niall Ring before you there were all saying we need more guards. Where are we going to get them from?
Well, listen, we had a reserve Gardaí. I don't know where they went. But let me tell you this, Neil. Where that man was attacked and assaulted brutally last night was about 25 steps from Store Street Guard Station.
So
it was about 25 steps from Store Street Guard Station.
What does that tell you? When they're not even afraid to do it beside a Garda station.
That's the problem, isn't it? You see, these guys are acting with immunity from prosecution. These guys are acting with we've no fear. You might go to court, remanded, and they mightn't come up for 3 years. In the meantime, there'll be cases put to the court, counting the deprived background,
He's got a job now, Your Honour. He's not that person anymore. Yeah. Suspended sentence, you're grand.
Slap on the hand.
Yeah.
What needs to happen, Neil, is that there needs to be a deterrent and an example made for any type of assaults and unacceptable behaviour that's going on in there. And if you look
why not go back to what John O'Donovan said many, many years ago when he was Minister for Justice and Minister or Mayor Bloomberg in New York? 3 strikes and you're out. Do you know what I mean? Three strikes and you're in jail. 3 strikes, you're in jail.
Yeah, and look, only last week myself and Niall Ring and others had to propose to close off our Harbour Court in Abbey Street. because of the antisocial and the drug dealing and the what's going on there during the day, during the evening. There's nobody would go down it, and now the business crowd came on to us and asked to close it. And I have people on to me yesterday complaining we shouldn't be closing public space. Well, hello, pal. If there's no Gardaí there, you're going to get rock and roll. Antisocial at its best.
But here's the other problem. Yeah, and again, I spoke to Tahi Doolan going from Sinn Féin, going back a bit some time about this. You end up with a situation with thugs raising thugs. In other words, their kids become thugs because the parents don't care about them, right? And
see, the abnormal becomes the normal, Neil.
Well, yeah, but Willie O'D as well has suggested, and I had said this before, about finding parents, and Niall Ring doesn't agree with it, but I don't think it's such a bad idea. If you start hitting people in the pocket, that's the only thing they seem to care about. If your kids are 14 and they're committing crimes, they need to be brought home and the parent given a public order fine, not looking after your kids.
They may not have it in the pocket, Neil. And
well, then you take it out of their social welfare.
I don't know. I think the deterrent of a sentence that's put up there, because remember this, no matter how hard he or she is, and I know because I've been in jails, everybody dreads getting that door locked behind them. But there's no deterrent. The justice system also needs to wake up in certain cases.
Just stay there for a second, Christy, if you can, because Alan, sorry, you want to say something as well. You're on Classic Hits. Go ahead, Alan.
Hi, how are you?
You're listening to the former Lord Mayor Christy Burke, who accepts and admits that Dublin City is not in the best place it's ever been when it comes to crime.
Well, not the best place. Dublin City Centre is a shithole, an absolute shithole, and it's been that way because of poor politicians with poor. We've a Minister for Justice that loves her soundbite and bringing in legislation so you can't say certain words because it might hurt someone's feelings. She should be removed immediately. Leo Varadkar should go as well. He's incompetent as well. This is complete nonsense. Parents need to take responsibility for their kids. I remember growing up, if I stepped out of line, my mother would give me a slap quite quickly and you'd be pulled into line. We have a guard crowd now that are so weak it's unbelievable. And kids will laugh at those guards. They'll throw a few rocks at the car and the car speeds off. I'm telling you now, what you're sending, we need the same type of vehicles that help the North. That's the vehicle you drive in. You bring the lad to the back and you kick the shit out of the young lad. If you have to, you drag them to jail. Enough is enough with this crap. If you continue to allow them to get away with this, they're only going to go up to be worse.
So you want to go back to the hardline Garda kind of patrolling that we did 30 years ago? I'll mention Lugs Brannigan's name again, yeah.
The woke nonsense isn't working. Touchy-feely, you okay? Your Honour, he's okay. And I would actually start removing judges that don't actually hand down correct sentences. It's just nonsense. Like a decent guard does a good job.
Well, I thought one of the worst ones was going back a while ago. Do you remember that lad who pushed the girl under the train? Going back about 4 years ago there, whatever it was, his sentence came up there about a year or two ago, and he was given a suspended sentence. He almost killed the woman. Yeah. Could have killed her.
I was in New York in May, and I felt safer walking on the streets in New York than I would in the streets of Dublin. Because there is. That's it. Well,
that depends on where in it depends on where in New York you were. If you're in Manhattan, it'd be reasonably safe.
Right in Times Square.
Yeah, but that's a tourist area. That's going to be reasonably safe in New York because you've got a lot of police presence. Yes.
Well, in Dublin, you will not see a guard. If you ring the guard station, we can't. Actually, we might find a guard somewhere. We'll send you about 3 hours time. Can you look after yourself there if we get there? Until again, it's we politicians that are causing a lot of this issue because they're so busy trying to appeal to every bit of society and we're so great. We look after you. It's time. Sometimes you got to go back to the tough stuff. If someone's dealing drugs in the door, you kick down the door, you drag them up with a scruff of the neck. Enough of this crap, right? And enough of this the soundbite, we feel sorry for this gentleman. It's utter nonsense. Yes, I am the right side of centre, and I believe law and order, and I believe until you start pulling these young lads out of the head and putting the fear back into them, they're going to continue to do this. And it's about time parents are garnished through their social welfare, or whatever it may be, that they will feel the pain if they do not control their kids.
Chrissy, well, hang on, let me just go back to Chrissy before I go to the break. Chrissy, a lot of people are saying that, it starts at 14. It doesn't start at 19 or 20. Nobody suddenly becomes a criminal at 20 years of age. Your life is already, your destiny is already there.
12 years of age.
12 years of age, whatever, yeah. And if Johnny at 12 or Mary at 12 is out robbing the local shop or is out, burning a car or is out in the back of a stolen car, they need to be brought home and the parents fined. I'm telling you now, you don't think that'll stop them because the only thing they care about is the money.
Neil, I just want to say, listen to the last speaker. I agree with him in a lot of areas he spoke about. The sound bites tonight from the Taoiseach, the sound bites tonight from the Minister for Justice. There's no deterrent. It is, parts of the city is toxic. I gave up the homeless runs because there was some nights it was just unbelievable what we were witnessing and what we were seeing. And I know that Talbot Street has become the street of fear. And at the end of the day, it's hard to see a guard on duty walking up, walking down, and it is the best deterrent. And if there's a deterrent of a 5-year sentence for any type of an assault or a GBH, I think it holds 7 to 10 at the moment, but that's not in practice. Again, your last speaker made the point. Judges need to wake up and smell the coffee and have a look at the misery that's been caused in our city as a result of leniency.
So stop listening to these hard luck stories from Free Legal Aid saying God bless him, he's had a bad upbringing, Your Honour, and he's a good lad now, he's been offered a job, and so you need to stop listening to that nonsense.
Well, look, everyone deserves the right of a trial and the right of a legal representation, but I think that it's gone beyond where there's no fear in young guys.
No, because they know they get a suspended sentence.
And young women, there's no fear. I have a woman on to me this morning from Fisbury with a little business, and she's a week trying to get a Garda response in order to the antisocial outside of our shop.
That's unacceptable.
A full week, and she keeps getting told on the phone, there's no car and there's no personnel.
Classic Hits Radio.
Let me go to Sean. Sean, how are you doing? You're on Ireland's Classic Hits Radio. Oh, there we go. No, Sean. Eamon.
How are you?
Go ahead.
Can you hear me then?
Oh, I think we have a bit of a problem there. Sorry, Jane, I do apologise. I have a problem with the phone line there. We shall ring you straight back. I do apologise. Okay, and the reason we're talking about this tonight, of course, is, as you all know, an American tourist, was attacked and kicked and beaten by a group of youths in Store Street at around 10:40. Well, it was actually he was staying top of the street, so it was top of Talbot Street. You've heard Christy Burke mention there a few months ago that it was literally 25 yards, or steps, as he put it, away from the door of Store Street Police Station. Now, that's unacceptable. If people believe they can commit a crime that close to a police station, one of the probably the busiest police stations in the country, it's a bad situation. We're in a bad situation. No harm to the guards that work there because they're under-resourced. There are 90 guards less than they had this time 2 years ago. The Garda force is 800 down on what it was 2 years ago. We have less guards on the street. We have less guards in the Garda station. We have less cars on the road. It's a disaster, and yet our population is increasing. So how do we deal with that? One only knows. Let me go to Eamon if I can first. I do apologise for that. Sorry, I lost the two lines together there. My fault. Sorry, Eamon, go ahead.
Yeah, I know. How's it going?
Good, Eamon. Eamon, how do we deal with tackle this problem?
I think that the children should be taken away and sent to a camp where they have to learn how to be, whether it's a man or a woman or whatever. Just send them out, let them spend some time in nature, that kind of thing. And I mean, if they pay money, they'll just pay money and they'll do it again and again and again. It'll only lead to more resentment, and then they'll do more crimes. Well,
no. If you're finding the parents of these kids primarily at the start, 14-year-olds or 12-year-olds that are committing crimes, well, then the parents are going to be tougher on the kids not to be committing crimes because they don't want to be paying out these fines.
But to be fair, I mean, these parents of the children and the children are going committing all these crimes, chances are they're probably going to be beating the living shite into the kids, to knock some sense into them, which is
I'm not suggesting beating children is a good idea, but if they discipline their own children for misbehaviour, it might not be such a bad thing. I mean, if I did something wrong when I was a kid, Eamon, my dad boxed the head off me. You know what I mean?
Certainly the same. I know, yeah, but I mean...
And look, we turned out okay, didn't we?
Yeah, but like the point is, if they are out committing crimes and if they're known charity or whatever, I just think technically isn't the solution really. They need to be re-educated essentially. I suppose break them down and build them back up into better people, if that makes sense.
And what's it like? You're from Cork, so what's it like, in Patrick Street or whatever in the middle of Cork at night? Is it safe?
When your man said there about Dublin City being a shithole at the moment, it's not far off a shithole, to be honest with you. There's junkies going around constantly around the place, mad homeless people. There was a stabbing there a few weeks ago. and she didn't make the paper. I think, outside McDonald's there, in that street.
Yeah.
A man died actually, and I'm pretty sure they were homeless. If not homeless, they were, drug dependent.
Most of the activity there is in and around where Supermax is there, and in and around that kind of area there, right? And
you're showing your age now. No, Supermax is. Well, no, there's a Supermax there actually. Sorry, across the gate. You're right.
I know. I met my wife in Cork. So anyway, but most of the activity. So if you were walking around there and heading around towards Patrick Street and what have you, would you see a guard on duty? Would you see 2 guards walking down the street on the beat?
I very, very, very rarely would see 2 guards walking around on duty on the beat. In fact, I haven't seen it in years. Now, they drive around, the cars are right, and you might see one lad on a bicycle. But what's one lad on a bicycle going to do if some lad's attacking someone with a knife?
Mm-hmm.
And what's one guard car flying around the place? And I emphasise the flying around the place. In fact, the vast majority of times I'll see the guards, and my thoughts on guards. I've been on plenty of times talking about it.
Yeah.
So I'm not their biggest fan. But 9 times out of 10 when I see the guards in Cork, they're in a petrol station or they're in the line for McDonald's out in Douglas at about 11 o'clock. And that line can go you'll be waiting about half an hour to get served there, in the drive-through. And there'll be a guard car in there 90% of the time in there, which isn't a lot. But, I think they're just very relaxed in Cork, the guards. They're not really that involved. I'm not up the north side at all too often. So maybe things are different up there.
Mm-hmm.
But, I'm not too convinced that there's a large guarded presence in Cork.
And you believe in and around Patrick Street and around that whole area there is as bad as Dublin City?
Yeah. Patrick Street, the Mercy Hospital. You'll see what are they called? Epidermic needles, hypodermic needles.
Yeah.
The whole time you'll see them. If you go around there behind the AIB, behind the banks, out into the river. If you park the car there, you'd be wanting to look where you're walking. There'll be human shit on the ground. There'll be needles around the place. Just dirty, filthy.
Yeah.
And nothing's being done about it.
That's the problem, isn't it? Nothing is being done about it. We're just letting it happen, and as we let it happen, it gets worse and worse and worse. Until you have a turning point. And everything in this country has a turning point. We always wait till something bad happens, and then we say we need to do something about that. And here we have a situation where a man who's on holidays is fighting for his life because he was beaten up, at 25 yards, according to Christy Burke, or 25 steps away from a Garda station. I mean,
they're inside guaranteed having hobnobs, Club Milk,
I don't know if they were in there having their hobnobs and Club Milk, and that's kind of irrelevant. But it's the fact that the people that did it are fearless. Because if you're willing to beat somebody up, knowing that you can literally see the Garda station while you're beating them up, it just shows there's a lack of fear of authority.
Yeah. Look, I'm not the biggest fan of the guards.
I know, you tell me.
I don't think the guards is the best solution.
Eamon, in fairness, you had a bad experience. And by the way, you explained the experience to me before, and I agree with you. The guard was over the top and shouldn't have did what he did to you. But in saying that, not every guard is a bad guard.
Yeah, no, 100%. 100% get that.
Yeah. Eamon, listen, thanks very much indeed. All right, listen, I've got to take a break. The number's 087 188 0008. Eamon is right. We shouldn't be waiting until something bad happens before we change things. And everybody else is right, by the way. The Minister and the Taoiseach on the telly tonight, with their sound bites, saying how horrible this is and we're going to have to do something about it. Well, I'd do something about it.
Real people, real opinions, real talk radio. The multi-award winning Niall Boylan Show.